Let's not lie here, one of the most popular watches in the world is the Rolex Submariner, but there's just so many alternatives to this watch that are absolutely phenomenal. So today, we're counting down my top 5 picks for the best alternatives to the Rolex Submariner. Welcome back to Time on the Wrist at Chisholm Hunter. My name is Harrison as always, and today we're counting down my top 5 picks for the best alternatives to the Rolex Submariner. And I do apologise for firstly the sniffles and the raspy voice. It's -7 in Glasgow today, and we arrived in and the taps are like frozen solid. They're quite literally a block of ice, which is just absolutely nuts. The first watch on the list is a watch that has risen exponentially in popularity over the last few years especially. It is the Glashütte Original CQ, and I am a huge fan of Glashütte Original. I actually went on a factory tour earlier this year to Germany, and we learnt some pretty incredible stuff. But let's talk about this CQ model. This model comes in at 39.5mm in diameter comparatively to the Rolex's 40mm in diameter. So it does sit that little bit slimmer on the wrist, and it also sits a little bit closer to the wrist. I would say it wears more like a dress watch rather than a chunky sports watch. The Rolex Submariner is that little bit more chunky and that little bit more edgy or sporty. And that brings me nicely onto the fact that this comes in at 12.15mm in thickness comparatively to the Rolex Submariner's 13mm in thickness. And this is why I think it's that little bit more of a dress watch. It sits that little bit slimmer, a little bit closer to the wrist, and slides nicely under a shirt cuff. This model has a water resistance of 200 meters comparatively to the Rolex Submariner's 300 meters. So it is a little bit less, but you need to think of when are you actually going to dive with this watch. Personally, I have an Omega Seamaster. I've got a Tudor Black Bay on. Have I ever dived with them? No, I haven't, because I am a desk diver. They also come in more colors than just one. There's a pretty big range of colors. You've got green, blue, black, all the staple colors in the watch industry. The Glashütte Original CQ, they have that. And also they have different metal variations if you want to mix and match. But I would say for a sports watch, personally, I'd stick with stainless steel. And that is the Glashütte Original CQ, an absolutely phenomenal brand. When we visited the factory, we learned so much incredible history, but we have got other watches to do, so we can't go into the details. I'll link that up here for you. Let's move on to number 2. And on that note, we need to pause this video to bring to you our biggest giveaway yet. This is the 20k giveaway. It is a Tissot PRX light green, which in my opinion is the most attractive Tissot PRX out. And all you need to do for your chance to win is firstly hit that subscribe button. Secondly, comment with what is on your wrist today. And thirdly, head to our Chisholm Hunter Watches Instagram page and drop us a follow. Thank you guys so much for supporting this channel. It is truly heartwarming, and this is my gift to you. Next up is a brand that you will definitely know, because Rolex and this brand are linked in more ways than one. It is the Tudor Black Bay Heritage Edition, and actually I have the ETA version on my wrist at the moment. It has done me fantastically well and is a beautiful model. So let's talk about it. Hans Wilsdorf invented Tudor to be the affordable Rolex, to not have as high a ticket price as Rolex, but remain high in quality. And if you look at the past 5 years, Tudor has rocketed in popularity, and it's no wonder why. They are phenomenal watches. This model comes in at 41mm comparatively to Rolex's 40mm. So it is a little bit more chunky. I would say it's a little bit more young, it's a little bit more trendy, and Tudor seem to take more risks than Rolex. For example, the burgundy bezel on this model. I've never seen anything like it, and I think it looks fantastic. It's the perfect combination between sports and vintage. As well as this, they have multiple other colors and also multiple other metal variations to choose from. They have a beautiful blue bezel, and if you want something a little bit more discreet, they have a black bezel with a black face. But they also have the Black Bay 58. If you are looking for that slightly slimmer, smaller model, if you've got slimmer wrists like me, then that might be the one you gravitate towards. This model is waterproof to 200 meters, whereas the Rolex obviously is waterproof to 300 meters. So it's 100 meters below that. But then you need to remember that firstly, it demands a smaller price. And also, when are you ever going to dive with this watch? I've had my Tudor for maybe 5 or 6 years, and I've gone maybe snorkeling with it. I don't think I've ever gone diving with it. Now, obviously, Rolex and Tudor are very similar in a lot of ways. They share a lot of the same DNA, and because of this, this watch looks very similar to the Rolex Submariner. There's some pretty obvious differences. For example, the burgundy bezel. I mean, you'd never get that in a Rolex Submariner, but there are a lot of similarities. So if you're wanting something extremely similar to the Rolex Submariner, I'd go with Tudor. And on that note, Chisholm Hunter are actually the authorized retailers of all the watches you will see in this video. They have 28 stores throughout the UK, and we've just released a new feature online where you can take a photo of your wrist and it automatically puts the watch on your wrist so you can see the sizing without having to leave the comfort of your own home. So head to the website linked below or come into our store. Ask for Harrison. I'll come and say hi. Next up, we have an absolute banger from the oldest watch brand in the world. Genuinely the oldest watch brand in the world. This is the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. Now, they're not the oldest watch brand in continuous production because that would go to Vacheron Constantin, but they are the oldest watch brand in the world. Blancpain watches are handcrafted genius. They produce a very small amount of watches a year, and the Blancpain 50 Fathoms comes in at 43.6 millimeters in diameter. So it is on the more chunky side of a sports watch, especially comparatively to the Rolex Submariner. But the movement in it is absolutely phenomenal, and the brand history is unbelievable. The build quality of this watch can't be beaten. This model comes in at 300 meters in water resistance and comes in slightly thicker than the Rolex Submariner at 13.8 or 9 millimeters in thickness. So it is a little bit more chunky, but you need to remember that Blancpain watches are handcrafted genius. The build quality in these things are insane, and this can be seen in the numbers, the production numbers of Blancpain watches. They only produce about 10 to 20,000 watches a year comparatively to Rolex's 1 million. And that is the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, an absolutely phenomenal watch for phenomenal people. But what I want to know right now from you guys is what is on your wrist today. It is time for the Chisholm Hunter tradition, and I have the Tudor Black Bay ETA version on my wrist, commonly known as the Smiley. Pretty incredible model. What do you have on today? Next on the list is the Omega Seamaster 300 meters. It is absolutely phenomenal watch, commonly known as Harrison's dating watch, because whenever I go on a date, I will put that on the NATO strap and go out with it because I think it just looks aesthetically so pleasing. It comes in at 42 millimeters in diameter, so it is a little bit more chunky, and it actually looks more chunky than that because of that helium escape valve. And yes, I know that the Omega Seamaster's helium escape valve is a love or hate for some people. It's kind of like Marmite in a lot of ways. But what I would say, what my rebuttal to that would be, is that it's iconically an Omega Seamaster because of this. When you look at other models, let's say the Longines Hydro Conquest, Tag Heuer Aquaracer, Glashütte Original CQ, they can all be mistaken as each other from a distance because they all have the same look, feel and aesthetic. Whereas when you see an Omega Seamaster from a distance, because of that helium escape valve, you know it's an Omega Seamaster. The movement in the Omega Seamaster is COSC and METAS certified, and also it goes to water resistance of 300 meters, so the same as the Rolex Submariner. As well as this, Omega obviously have a connection to James Bond, and you might have seen James Bond limited edition Omega Seamasters floating about. There's quite a lot of marketing around them, and some people don't like that, but some people do. Again, it's kind of like Marmite to some people. But what my rebuttal to that would be is that to me, watches are about memories. And when I look at my Omega Seamaster, I'm reminded of watching James Bond with my dad, and that's quite a special memory to me. And that is the Omega Seamaster 300 meters. I'm not going to talk too much about this watch because I end up just getting carried away and not shutting up, but let's move on to number 5. Next up, we have the Tissot Seastar 1000. Now there's a 1000 version and there's also a 2000 version, but we're going to stick with the 1000. In terms of value for money, I would say that it is extremely difficult to beat Tissot at the moment. They are really crushing it. Them and Seaq especially, they're just killing the game at affordable luxury. This Tissot Seastar comes in at 43 millimeters in diameter, so yes, it is that little bit more chunky than the Rolex Submariner. It also goes to 300 meters of water resistance, so it goes to the same depths as the Rolex Submariner, all for a price of £675. It comes in multiple colors, comes in stainless steel, or you can get a kind of leather hybrid strap on it, and it has an ETA movement, the Powermatic AT movement with 80 hours of power. Now, I actually took the Tissot Seastar 2000 to the Dolomites in Italy to put it through its paces, to climb hills, to climb Monroes, probably bigger than Monroes actually, and just pretty much see what it was made of. And I have to say that it is absolutely phenomenal. And value for money wise, I would challenge anyone that's watching this video to put in the comments a watch that beats this, because I can't think of any. And that is my top 5 Rolex Submariner alternatives. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Harrison. This is the Chisholm Hunter channel. I really hope this was beneficial. If it was, please hit that subscribe button or follow our Instagram, Chisholm Hunter Watches. I am going to go and wrap up, get a jacket on, and get a really disgustingly big plate of pasta, because it's that kind of day.